Hey fucker, do you want to talk about game design? Hearthstone is a game that I personally quite like, and unlike Austin McConnell, I know about it. It's a game that I've played a healthy amount of, but unfortunately for me, the game is developed by Blizzard, a company renowned for making really good decisions.
Just was wondering, is this an out-of-season April Fool's joke?
No.
You tell him, Vsauce. For those of you who are lucky enough to not have been pulled in and trapped by this game's gravitational pull, which I know it has because I did science, Hearthstone is a fairly standard trading card game set in the Warcraft universe, a world where the characters are designed by an erection.
I'm ready.
There are three main types of cards in the game. You've got your basic set. These are cards that every player just gets as soon as they make an account. If you have a Hearthstone account, you have these cards. You've got the classic set. These are cards that you get in packs, and once you obtain them, you get to keep them and use them in the standard game mode forever, at least in theory. Then you've got cards from expansions. These are cards that you also get by opening packs, but unlike the classic cards, these cards only stick around for 2 years. They add new expansions every few months, keep the cards from those expansions in the game for 2 years, and then remove them from the game once that time is up, so they can no longer be played in the standard game mode, which is the one that everyone plays. It's also worth mentioning cards from the Hall of Fame. These are cards that used to belong to one of the other 3 sets of cards, but got removed from the game for whatever reason, and also can no longer be played in the standard game mode. Packs, by the way, it's worth mentioning, are pretty fucking expensive. You can buy them with in-game currency, which is good. You can also buy them with real money if you want more, and are a billionaire, fucking hell. And I'm sure once the technology is fully developed, you'll be able to pay Blizzard with your soul. Now, before we start looking at Blizzard's game design, let's take a quick look at some of someone else's. There it is. What I just showed you was a card from the Custom Hearthstone subreddit, which is a place that people go to share their ideas of things that they think it would be really cool if it was in the game. The card from Custom Hearthstone I want to show you is called The End, and it's a 0 mana neutral spell with epic rarity that ends your turn. Now, if you've played the game, or even if you haven't, you may be thinking, why? Why would this happen? Let's ignore the fact that there aren't neutral spells for a second, and actually not even come back to it. Let's just ignore that. Why would this card ever be printed? What possible situation could there ever be where you want to end your turn, and your next immediate reaction isn't to press the button that says end turn? Why would you ever take up one of the slots in your deck with a card that does something that you can just do anyway? Cards are a valuable resource in this game. Trying to figure out why someone thinks that something like this is a good idea is the kind of thing that would keep me up at night. So I'm very lucky that the creator of this card decided to explain their rationale behind it in the title of their post. Before anyone claims this spell is useless, it is not. This isn't something to put in your deck, but whenever a random spell is cast, this can show up. That's right, this card isn't actually a card that exists to be a card that people play or put in their decks like literally all of the other cards in the game. This is a card that exists to occasionally randomly fuck up your game for no reason. Amazing! There are a few cards in the game that cast random spells, and quite a lot more that add random spells to your hand. So when you play one of those cards, the very existence of this card makes those cards worse, by giving them the potential to just fuck up your game for you. Let's say for some reason you decide to play the card Deck of Wonders. It shuffles 5 cards into your deck, and when you draw them, you cast a random spell. But now, with the end in the game, at the start of your turn when you draw a card, your turn could just end, and then you don't get a turn, and then because of that, you probably lose. This card has made Deck of Wonders much worse, because if anything was in need of a nerf, it was Yogg-Saron. This also makes cards that add random cards to your hand or let you discover cards worse as well. Wow, Discover normally gives me 3 things to choose from, but in practical terms here, it's only really giving me 2, because the third one is the end. Except actually, it wasn't the end, because that card isn't in the game. It was actually Tome of Intellect, a much more useful card. Actually, it was Arcane Explosion, but I tried for fucking ages to get footage of a card offering me Tome of Intellect so I could make the segue, and after, like, so many fucking attempts, I just gave up. Please just pretend that card was Tome of Intellect. I get existentially worried that I'm wasting my life normally without forcing myself to do the same action over and over again in a video game to try and get a few seconds of footage. Actually, it was Tome of Intellect. Whoa! One thing that Blizzard has been doing a lot is nerfing and removing cards from the classic and basic sets. This is good, or at least it can be. When a card is overpowered and needs to be nerfed or removed, removing or nerfing it would be the appropriate thing to do so that the game's meta can stay healthy and free of overpowered or unfair cards. Doomguard was a really powerful card, so they removed it from the classic set and put it in the Hall of Fame where it could no longer be played in the standard game mode. They then add new cards to replace the cards that they removed and everything is good, right? No, the cards that they added as replacements are not fucking good. Let's get into that. Tome of Intellect is a 1-mana spell for mages that adds a random mage spell to your hand. Gift of the Wild is an 8-mana druid spell that gives your minions 2/2 and Taunt. Radiance, a 1-mana priest spell that restores 5 health to your hero. Give your minions Divine Shield for 5 mana. That's high if you don't play the game, that's really high. Call of the Void, add a random demon to your hand for 1 mana. These cards are bad, like really, really bad. Let's take a quick look at, for example, Tome of Intellect. Tome of Intellect is great. If you're a mage, you can put it in your deck and it lets you pay 1 mana, mana being one of the most important resources in the game, to get a random mage spell. You know what else you can put in your deck if you're a mage? A mage spell. The same kind of mage spell that Tome of Intellect would give you anyway, except this time you don't have to pay 1 mana to get it, you just brought it with you, and you get to choose which one it is. I want you to imagine you go into a store, and you pick out some items that you want, and then you take it to the till and you're ready to pay for it, and then the till person says, okay, we've got a premium service on, right? What you've got here is worth £3. But if you want, you can pay £1 extra, and for that extra £1, I will go and choose your items for you so that you don't get to choose what it is you're buying. Does that sound like a better or worse deal? Now, I'm not going to pretend like Tome of Intellect is absolutely useless. There are scenarios in which it's okay-ish? Basically, it's not as useless as fucking the end. Sometimes it can be useful to cast a cheap spell and then still have another spell in your hand. That can be good. Although there are other spells in the game that just are better at doing the exact same thing. This is just a weaker version of those spells. But this spell isn't literally useless like the end. It can set off your mana cyclone. It can set off your magic dart frog, just like literally any other spell can. But these cards are really bad. The Warlock version, Call of the Void, is even worse, because there are far fewer situations as a Warlock where something like this would be useful. These cards, the ones that are currently on the screen, were brought in as replacements for other cards a little while ago now. But these ones are just getting added to the game. And these are the ones that inspired me to go, right, no, fucking enough is enough. Stop. Blizzard, stop. Let me tell you about Righteousness. If you don't know about this game, giving your minions Divine Shield for 5 mana could sound reasonable, considering you don't know what either of those things really mean. It is in fact the opposite of reasonable. It is unreasonable. Let's compare this card to a different, older card that wasn't added to replace something. Unidentified Maul is a 2/2 weapon. That's a weapon that does 2 damage and has 2 attacks, and it costs 3 mana. It's not just a 2/2 weapon though, as it also comes with one of 4 randomly chosen effects, one of which is giving your minions Divine Shield. So take that card, take away the weapon, which is arguably the more useful part of it, and then take this card that you've made less useful and make it more expensive by 2 mana. What the fuck? Righteousness, more like wrongchousness. I'm probably not even the first person to make that terrible joke. It's not just Righteousness you can do this with either, and you don't have to take my word for it because I'm about to prove it by doing it to other ones. Gift of the Wild, a druid spell that gives your minions +2/+2 and taunt for 8 mana. Now, giving a minion taunt is a very small effect. You can literally get it on a card that costs 0 mana and does something else as well. So it's the +2/+2 that's really where the money is here. This card compares really badly to basically every other card in the game that does a similar thing. Mark of the Lotus is a little less than half the effectiveness for an eighth the cost. Cenarius is a card that's more flexible and comes with a 5/8 minion, and the only ways in which it's worse are that it doesn't give your minions taunt and it costs 1 more. It's a lot better. Gift of the Wild, more like bad. Radiance is a new priest spell that they've added. It costs 1 mana and restores 5 health to your hero. This is just a straight up nerf of Flash Heal, which can restore 5 health to any character for the same cost, and Binding Heal, which restores 5 health to your hero and to a minion. And neither of those cards are particularly overpowered. Binding Heal is easily twice as good as Radiance, and arguably even better than that, because not only is this restoring twice as much health for the same cost, it's also more flexible in most situations. Hearthstone devs, Blizzard, let me give you a tip. If 2 cards in your game have the same cost, and one is literally just twice as good, that probably indicates an issue with the balance. Radiance, more like, fuck you. You disgusting, repugnant, repulsive fatigue rogue. I don't like fatigue rogues.
Here we go.
I'm ready.
The pleasure is mine.
My hand is too full.
Sorry about that.
I'm really not supposed to be sharing this with you guys, but I've got some inside sources at Blizzard, and from them I've got a few 100% totally, genuinely real leaks of cards they're planning on adding to the game in future updates that aren't quite ready to be revealed just yet. Let's take a look at them, shall we? For starters, we've got a King Rastakhan card. He's going to be a neutral legendary coming to the classic set. He's 11 mana, he's a 1/1 creature, but the card text is the most impressive part of this card, because I think it does an incredible job of justifying that cost in that stat line. And it simply says quality is subjective. Next up, we've got Unleash the Rhino. This is a 10 mana warrior spell coming to the basic set. And what it does is it gives a minion taunt, which is apparently really valuable. This next card is one that I think is pretty cool. It's called Jaina's Heaving Combat Titties. It's a mage card coming to the classic set. It's a 5-cost 2/2 minion with Battle Cry, add a Titty Slap to your hand. And then Titty Slap is a 5-cost spell that does 1 damage to both heroes. Obviously that high cost is important because if it was costed lower it would be really overpowered with Malygos. We've got a 9 mana druid spell coming to the classic set here. It's called Nature or the Wild or something. And what it does is restores your minions to full health and gives them taunt. And it's rare, it's got rarity. Really? Come on. That's a bit silly, isn't it? Even for this little jokey segment. They're adding all of these underpowered cards, but even I don't think they would be silly enough to make one of those cards rare. Could you imagine how disappointing it would be to open a rare? Oh no. Next up we've got Buy More Packs. This is a 4-cost spell for Warlock, and what it does is it gives a friendly minion echo. And now that's clearly bad design, isn't it? I don't know how they didn't pick up on this. Clearly what it should say is give a minion repeatable this turn, because echo is supposed to be exclusive to the Witchwood, except when it isn't. And finally we've got a mage spell called Tome of Intellect, and what it does is it adds Tome of Intellect to your hand for 5 mana. I hope you're enjoying seeing me royally screwed by this hand mage in the background, by the way. I'm playing this game live as I record this to get background footage, and it's not going fucking well. You know what? Just, there we go. Oi, shut up. So I think by now I've made my point so explicitly clear that if you've not understood me, you're wrong. Blizzard be printing a lot of bad cards. But what I'm seeing said a lot is that this is fine, because you can just not play them. But look at the end. No one was ever gonna play the end, but it still messes up the game in unforeseeable ways, or actually the ways that the creator of the card explicitly wanted to happen for some reason. Hang on, why did people upvote this? In a game like Hearthstone, with card generation being one of the core mechanics, Having cards in the game that are so poorly balanced is gonna screw with you. I mean, it's also gonna screw with new players who show up and rationally assume that the cards are balanced. But even if you're smart enough to know not to play these cards, you're still gonna get screwed by them sometimes, just like you would by the end. Now, another problem is the fact that Blizzard have been doing this for a while now, and they keep doing it, would suggest to me it's the way they intend to carry on. They intend to continue making the classic set and the basic set just really bad. And every time they do it, the game is just gonna get a little bit worse. Burgle Rogue is the deck I feel sorry for the most. Although I do feel kinda sorry for that deck anyway, poor Burgle Rogue. The reasons that Blizzard keep giving for these changes are to improve class identity and balance in the game. But let's take a moment to think about what some other effects of these changes might be. The worse that the cards in the basic and classic set are, the less they'll see play in competitive decks. And if cards from the classic and basic set are being played less, that means cards from expansions are being played more. Which means if players want to keep up with the meta and the competitive decks, they're going to have to buy more expansion packs. And then they're going to have to do the same thing again for the next expansion, and again for the next expansion, and so on, forever. Or at least for as long as you want to keep playing. So, yeah, forever. That's a convenient side effect of this change that Blizzard are making to the game, isn't it? That's going to make them a lot more money. Or a lot less when people stop fucking playing because the game gets worse. Could this lead to the end of Hearthstone? No, probably not. It'll probably just make the game slightly worse, like it is doing already. Thank you for watching. I'm Big Gay. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.